guys. Alright, thanks for tuning in. Alright, so I'm going to be doing discrimination laws, like pertaining towards hiring practices and just the freaking growth that's taking place to set standards for like discrimination throughout the country. Alright, so I based most of this off of an assignment that I did, like I would say probably like a year and a half ago-ish, and in doing so, I was able to find a bunch of freaking like great info pertaining towards like current policies and like pre-existing policies that have been in place for years and that have been like really updated and set to a standard to like really just create a well-versed like work environment and to just ensure that everybody is like given the rights that they're entitled to and really just, you know, set a boundary for discrimination overall. So I'm going to literally check again and see what info I'm actually going to use because I think I have like 3 set of my presentation. This entire freaking notes section will just like 4 pages. Yeah. Alright, so oh my gosh, okay, that's communication. Alright, discrimination. Alright, so I'm gonna be starting with the Immigration Reform and Control Act, the IRCA. Okay, so it was enacted, or should I say it was freaking created in 1986. It was a law that made changes to the U.S. immigration law and in doing so, it set the standard for legalizing illegal immigrants. The IRCA legalized most illegal immigrants who arrived in the U.S. before January 1st, 1984. Oh, and then looks like we're going to check to see if like my headphones are connected. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's see. For immigrants who arrived in the U.S. before January 1st, 1984, this freaking act also made it illegal to hire illegal immigrants. The IRCA made it illegal to knowingly hire illegal immigrants and establish penalties for companies that did so. So setting a standard for the basis of, you know, creating a rule. You know, we've gone through our freaking like development phases. We literally went from the freaking country that was like literally founded upon freaking everybody like literally coming from all over the world to literally like work together to freaking like form this freaking country, fight over like every aspect of it, and then to the modern day, it's like a freaking like place where you can literally just go throughout and literally meet people from all over the freaking world, like all the freaking time, and it's like, it's super interesting, it's super cool, and it's super great to look back on the history and really just know all of the key freaking players that work towards like creating and developing everything throughout the country and all the aspects and all the freaking the teamwork effort that truly went into doing so. And in setting the standard for the modern day, that we literally had to limit the immigration standards because it was getting like really out of control for like a decent bit. And then this was like the early development phases of it also, where it was like really like setting the standard for it, and then let's see, like going into like the early 2000s, it was like the freaking major freaking standard of trying to limit and control, and then we went into the teens, and then it was like literally, you know, maybe we should freaking up the freaking system for immigration, maybe we should freaking build a wall to like literally reinforce the standards of the freaking border, and maybe we should freaking literally work on handling the masses that are here that are immigrants and try to freaking like deport them. Maybe we should help a lot of people gain their citizenship. Just so many different freaking standards that have gone into working towards limiting immigration, setting the standard for creating a plan for handling immigration, and then in working towards helping people become citizens. So putting those two hand in hand is something that kind of causes a big freaking debate. In doing so, though, it sets a standard where there's that growth level, there's that standard of being mindful of something that is taking place and working towards finding a solution. the common grounded level would be in including a freaking plan that's geared towards doing both, you know, setting a standard to limit immigration and to up defenses against freaking illegal immigration, to kind of freaking work towards helping people become citizens, creating freaking like national freaking like courses for freaking helping people gain the knowledge that they require, providing the funding to freaking do so. As I know like a bunch of places probably like offer these resources, but setting it as a nationwide standard will help on freaking limiting the freaking overall problem pertaining towards, you know, the underhanded like flow of literally trying to survive in a new freaking country and, you know, work towards establishing yourself and then later becoming a citizen. And oftentimes it takes an extremely long time because there's just so much going on in your life that you truly don't have time to literally freaking go, well, now that I'm here, time to become a citizen. Most people are like, now that I'm here, it's time to freaking like, you know, get a freaking job, you know, try to freaking acquire funds. I want to help my family out. I want to freaking, you know, pay under the table for my freaking rent, and I want to just be safe. And then it's like getting cars and everything else and just the standards, communicating with people that are like a part of your community from whence you've like, for people that like can connect to your national origin basis are typically, they're like the certain ones that are going to understand your story more so of you being an immigrant. And so it's like the safest freaking environment, and in doing so they have like a bunch of access to resources that you may require, but you always have to be mindful of not getting sidetracked and forgetting to actually, you know, complete your citizenship process. And then in doing so, it's just it's a lot in itself, so we all have to like literally work together to kind of just ensure that we're mindful of the immigration problem, and that we're mindful that there are plans and work to freaking like, you know, develop strategies for preventing it, for limiting it, for freaking overall creating a standard of, you know, don't do this because there will be repercussions, and also the standard for assisting those in need, because it's kind of like the major basis for how we all live. So in doing so, maybe in the near future we'll be able to freaking like pass a freaking like act or a law, or maybe we'll freaking be able to, instead of gaining a freaking additional freaking territory like every freaking year, maybe we can freaking completely unify North America. We'll be like freaking combine like Canada, America, and freaking Mexico, and literally just be like a united front, and that will freaking limit, you know, at least the immigration standards for trying to get to the U.S. Instead, it's like literally, you know, if you're freaking traveling and you're literally trying to get to freaking Mexico, and it's like you're already technically in that freaking like unified country and region. There's no freaking further aspect after, and then it's just like, you know, I don't know. It'll be something interesting in itself. I highly doubt it, but yeah, it's all about working to set a standard, set boundaries, and work towards a common freaking goal. Requiring employers to verify employment eligibility. Employers must verify the identity and employment eligibility of all employees hired after 1986. They do this by completing an employment eligibility verification form, the I-9, and reviewing documents that show that employee's identity and employment authorization. So, and the paperwork that we fill out when you are initially like onboarding and working towards, you know, becoming an employee with any company, we try to keep everything on the books for the set basis of, you know, when you're like when we were like teens. I know my first freaking job at like a freaking like cafe during my teenage years, or my like junior year in high school. It was like a mom and pop job, so it was like really cool. It's like kind of like one of those like under the table kind of like freaking jobs, but it wasn't like really like under the table. It was just kind of like, you know, we were just like teens and we didn't have bank accounts and stuff, so they were like, you know, we'll have you like as like actual like set employees and try to like include you in all the like breakdowns for everything that like takes place. But yeah, you guys don't have bank accounts, so like we can't freaking give you like a check and then go like you can go cash a check. We can't freaking you know, have you set up for like direct deposits because you guys can't really do that. And then, you know, as like we got our like checking accounts and stuff like that, we were freaking eligible for like checks. And then it's like if you requested a check instead of like the cash payouts, you would literally just freaking have to just go to like your parent, have like your parent actually cash a check for you, and then it's like you get to go to that moment where you go to like the freaking bank with your parents, and they're like, ooh, look at this, what's going on? Somebody's freaking leveling up and has their own check, and it's like, yeah, my kid just got their first job, and this is their freaking first check and everything like that. But yeah, so we set the freaking standard for having everything done by the books and on the books. That way there's always a paper trail to be linked towards any type of dispute, any type of freaking, basically for everything within like the basis of law and business management. You always have to have the information pertaining towards anything stated. So you literally should always have all of your important information on file, create data copies of it, save those so that you can always access those later. For hiring employees, make sure that everybody always fills out the proper paperwork, have their freaking I-9s filled out, their freaking W-2s for their freaking like taxes and stuff like that. And it's just like just the essentials. And then you do like your freaking like tax withholdings and then everything like that. Set everything to a standard where everything is like covered by the books. But in setting this immigration standard, it was a kind of like a ploy towards ensuring that everybody who is set to work within any field is aware that there are standards and that there are the freaking legal parameters that cover the basis of not only the employer but the individual also, and kind of set the like just rule and the mindset towards reflecting what are the questions that you're being asked when you read through anything, and you have to like freaking like bubble those and freaking like do any of the freaking breakdowns. What does it entail? And in doing so, you kind of get the basis. So when filling out your freaking employment eligibility verification form, you're setting the basis where you're verifying, you're a citizen, you are somebody that is on a visa, and you just really you clarify that you are eligible to work, and then in doing so, it helps create that basis of moving forward rather than moving back towards having to reestablish a new set of rules for controlling that aspect. Making it illegal to discriminate based on citizenship or immigration status. The IRCA made it illegal for employers to discriminate based on citizenship or immigration status in hiring, firing, or recruitment. IRCA also required the former Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, to create an electronic system for verifying the immigration status of non-citizen applicants for federally funded benefits. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, now performs this function. The IRCA was signed into law by President Ronald Reagan on November 6th. So it's been like, let's see, I think, what's it? Next year would be like the freaking, let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40. Yeah, next freaking year would be like, no, wait, wait, one sec. 10, 20, 30, 40, oh, wait, maybe. 10, 20, 30. Okay, yeah, no, it's okay. So next year on November 6th, it'll be the 40 freaking year mark for this act being signed into law by President Ronald Reagan. It was signed into law on November 6th, 1986. I literally like double freaking like added that in there a few times and literally got to like 50, and I was like, that's a bit freaking off. My mom was born in the freaking 80s. Alright, so in this section, I'm going to touch base upon the Civil Rights Act, and this is the section. So basically, I'm going to like jump over to my PowerPoint, and then I'll tell you the basis for this entire note section, so that way you understand what inspired me to like do research on these. So I did a paper covering outreach to disparate populations, and in doing so, we had to touch base upon hiring practices, outreach practices, employee retention methods, protector laws, affirmative action laws, state and federal action laws to protect against discrimination. And in doing so, I was like, okay, so I basically like literally already covered this. I picked a freaking section of it into my freaking note section for a topic to cover. And I was like, I definitely like literally covered that for one of my presentations. And I scrolled through my freaking PowerPoint and found the section that covered the freaking major basis for something that I wanted to do more research into. That way I didn't just have to like read through my presentation and literally not have the freaking info required to literally provide more insights. For my presentation, we literally touched base upon like the major freaking topics and included them in to like tie together our presentation. But for this one, I was like, I'm going to give you guys a breakdown for it. I want to like provide you with the information to literally set the basis for what each policy and act set in force. So, and going through the state and federal action laws and guidelines, states must adhere to the guidelines of the Immigration Reform and Control Act, the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, and the Equal Pay Act. And then I literally like did some research for each of those, so that way you guys can like literally gain some insight, some info pertaining towards each. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity, as well as national origin. Title VII applies to employers, employment agencies, labor organizations, and training programs. Title VII protects employees and job applicants from discrimination in hiring, termination, promotion, compensation, job training, other terms, conditions, or privileges of employment. Title VII also prohibits employment decisions based on stereotypes and assumptions, prohibits neutral job policies that disproportionately exclude minorities, requires employers to reasonably accommodate employees, including leaves for religious observance or practices. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, was created by the Act to prevent and remedy unlawful employment discrimination. And our next basis is going to be touching base upon the Americans with Disabilities Act. So what is the Americans with Disabilities Act? The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADEA, of 1990 provides comprehensive civil rights protections to individuals with disabilities in the areas of employment, state and local government services, public accommodations, transportation, and telecommunications. The Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in several areas, including employment, transportation, public Okay, so this one is like, I was like worried about this one because I was like, when I transferred this freaking section over, it literally has like a repeat from the statement that's made before. But this is the freaking basis of a lot of disabilities that are included within that breakdown. So there is the cancer. There is the freaking disabilities that are included within that breakdown include cancer, diabetes, post-traumatic stress disorder, HIV, autism, cerebral palsy, deafness or hearing loss, and but not limited to blindness or low vision. And there are a lot more that fall within that, but those are like the major ones that I was like, I'll freaking add into that. And then they were also like the ones that were like set within the basis for these are like the top ones that typically are like applicable. So it's like, yes, we definitely need those. And hopefully if anybody knows anybody that falls into that, be mindful that if there are any discriminatory like practices used against like anyone that you may know or yourself while going through the hiring process, know that you are entitled to your rights and that you literally can always like prove it. But yeah, just be mindful, and if there's anybody that you know that may fall within any of those categories, literally make it a point to help them be aware that they have the same rights and entitlements as anyone else who literally would be considered somebody that's normal or somebody that's just, undiagnosed. Because I literally tell people literally, oh wait, you know what, not as much as now that I've gotten older, and I feel like not as much now that I don't freaking joke with like my family all the time about like things like these, but you never know if somebody's like missed being freaking diagnosed, because some people are very just, you know, they're a little freaking out there. And it's like, I'm pretty sure there's like a diagnosis for nearly freaking everyone. It's just all about figuring out, you know, what the heck your diagnosis will be set for. Alright, so the next section is going to cover the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the ADEA of 1967. It is a U.S. labor law that protects people who are 40 years of age or older from employment discrimination. The ADEA prohibits discrimination in any aspect of employment, including hiring, firing, promotion, layoff, compensation, benefits, job assignments, and trainings. The ADEA also prohibits harassment, retaliation, limiting segregation, or classifying employees based on their age. The ADEA's purpose includes promoting employment of older people based on their abilities, helping employers and workers find ways to deal with the impact of age on employment. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, enforces the ADEA to preserve your right to file a formal complaint. You should see an EEO counselor within 45 days of the action you believe is discriminatory, and contact your bureau EEO officer to initiate counseling. Alright, so we're on page 3 of, technically 3 of 5, but 5 is like my sources section. So let's see, we're at like the 20-minute mark. This one will likely be like a 45-minute video, which would be freaking great. The Equal Pay Act, EPA, of 1963 is a law that prohibits employers from paying employees differently based on sex. The EPA applies to all forms of compensation, including salaries, overtime, bonuses, benefits, and more. The EPA protects individuals of all sexes. The EPA requires employers to pay employees equally for jobs that require substantially equal skill, effort, and responsibility, and are performed under similar working conditions also. So if it's the exact same freaking job, you can't literally have that standard of, you know, because you're a freaking man or a woman, or because you're freaking like yeah, basically I feel like that was like the major basis behind it. Because you're like a man or a woman, you can't set a different standard for each. Oh, man or a woman, or let's see, or based off of your race. So you can't literally have like, let's add there is a Caucasian male, there is a Caucasian female, there is a African American male, there is a African American female, there is a, let's see, Latin American male, there is a Latin American female, and each are doing the exact same job. Let's see, we'll do it 3 separate branches. So each is doing the exact same job at 3 separate branches. The pay rate is set for each position. However, throughout the hiring process, upon freaking viewing that the people that they would be hiring were different races, they decided to alter the hiring contract and set a new rate, and then the new rates were set based off of their race. So let's say the African American male and the African American female, let's see, the African American male was offered like, you know, $2 less than the Caucasian male, and the African American okay, wait, hold on. So we'll have to do like the initial whole breakdown to literally catch why this would be like a freaking horrible thing. So the Caucasian male is offered a rate to freaking let's say they're each working as a receptionist for a company, different freaking divisions throughout the city, and the rate is, of course, as stated, it's a set rate no matter which branch you work at. It's the standard that was enforced during the freaking deliberations set towards, you know, deciding employee compensation rates for the freaking year and salary basis, and, you know, anything else that would fall within that parameter. So the rate, and I'll start with the rate, and then we'll go through the race breakdowns after, and then see if we can like provide the basis for understanding everything. I can't believe my freaking fingers like changing colors. All right, so the rate for the position is, let's see, receptionist, so $25 an hour. This is for everyone, no matter what your race, no matter what your gender is, no matter which freaking division of our company you work at, you will be getting the exact same rate, like all throughout. The Caucasian male is offered the rate for $25 an hour, as the position is set to cover. The Caucasian female is offered a rate of $20 an hour because they're like, oh, well, that's just a freaking woman. Like, this is, she's probably not even thinking that much of it. It's probably just like something that's like great for her to like do to like get out of the house. You get to freaking skip, staying home and taking care of the kids, and like you just set a bunch of stereotypes within the basis of like why you would do this, and then in doing so you cheated her out of her freaking pay rate that we've already decided upon in meetings, and then so that's those two. The African American male is hired for the job. He is offered the job for, let's see, let's set it so that it's not like completely horrible like it was in the past, but we'll do two bases of it. So we'll do like two separate freaking we'll do parallel universes for this one because I want to hit the basis for why it was such a big deal. So the African American male is offered the job in parallel universe, super freaking evil. He's offered the position for $15 an hour when the pay rate is set at $25 an hour. In our universe, where they were just literally like, I'm just cheating everybody at this point who isn't like somebody that I feel might like actually like do some research and find it just against stereotyping. So we got their freaking rate set at, $2.50 less than the Caucasian male. So they're making $22.50 as opposed to $25. No, and in parallel universe evil, the reason this was such a big deal with hiring practices because it set a really bad freaking standard difference, and for the $15 an hour kind of like breakdown, it would be a tad more close to what the Caucasian like female would be making also, and it kind of like set the basis for the need for equality. You can't freaking have bunch of people doing the exact same job, but only one person's actually making the agreed upon rate for it, and everybody else is kind of just getting like this freaking like made up breaking rate, and in doing so it's like discrimination. So this set the basis for working towards proper hiring practices. So let's see, we'll bring it back to the basis of just like horrible freaking pay rates. So the African American male was offered the rate of $22.50. The African American female is offered a rate $1 less than the $1.25 less than the Caucasian female. So her rate is $18.75. So we've got the Caucasian male at $25 an hour, the Caucasian female at $20 an hour, the African American male at $22.50, and the African American female at $18.75. Then we have our third branch with the Latin American male. He is offered the position at, let's see, try to like set it at a feasible rate so that way each of the males are set the standard of still making like only like the exact same rate less than each other. So the Latin American male will be making, so we'll subtract $2.50 from $22.50, he'll be making $20, and the Latin American female will be making, so we'll subtract $125, so let's see, we are at $17.50. That is our basis for the freaking pay differences, and then in doing so, we kind of like get to that point where they're like literally they are stereotyping against the freaking employees. They're making them feel uncomfortable with the freaking practices and the amount of work that they put on each of them. And in doing so, they each kind of, decide to contact upper management and to file grievances, to file, and with proof also. So they have the proof to back their case. And in doing so, they get the people in upper management to really just go like, what the heck is going on in there? And then once they start sending in representatives, they're kind of like, why are each of these people that are filing grievances number one? Okay, so number one, why are each of these people getting paid something that is below the rate that they are supposed to be freaking being paid for? And why are you discriminating against them? And then each of those freaking standards falls within freaking discriminatory practices, which can, number one, get the company in hot water, and number two, it can literally get like you for not using the proper freaking hiring practices, for discriminating against them, and for not adhering to the freaking laws in a lot of freaking hot water. So it's like overall the major basis of ensuring that what takes place within your company is by the books and to your standards, and always being mindful to literally check and make sure that everything is okay. Make sure that everything is going by the books, because if anything happens to take place, or if anybody ever decides to like literally speak out, it's like, that's going to reflect upon the company as a whole and not on the freaking individual who broke the rules overall. So it's like, the person who broke the rules could be freaking like fired, but then the basis for the freaking lawsuit is going to fall upon the company. And it sets the standard also for like what the company represents as a whole. And it's like, you can set the standard for, we will remove anybody who breaks these rules, but then it kind of never really helps the people that were freaking persecuted and discriminated against for like those freaking years. And then in doing so, it's like, your company will lose credibility. So it's always something to be mindful of. And then in being a freaking business owner myself, it's always great to be able to like remind people, stay on top of everything. Don't be afraid to be more hands-on. There are a lot of freaking aspects where we can literally just kind of like sit back. You can freaking hire an assistant and they can freaking handle like a bunch of freaking like essential work for you. They can freaking manage like other freaking aspects, everything from like freaking social media and freaking calendar organization, freaking stats, and freaking literally like working on freaking creating a freaking spreadsheet breakdown to like literally managing your employees for you. But it's always great to be more hands-on. That way you can ensure that your guidelines that you've set forth are followed to the T. And you always want to show face to remind people that you will be there, and in doing so, you remind them to be mindful that the standard that you set forth is to be enforced, and is to be enforced because it is not only to protect you and your company, but also to protect each of your employees. Let's see. The EPA requires employers to pay employees equally for jobs. Okay, so that we touch base on. The EPA was signed into law by President John F. Kennedy on June 10th, 1963. It's part of the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1983. Alright, I'm sorry, you guys. I literally, I read that yesterday and I was like, that's so freaking adorable. I got, a news update during that time frame for, Trump freaking working to assign, I believe, oh gosh, who was the new one? The one who was literally just on the ballot, the new freaking, younger Kennedy child. And he was said to be, I believe, one of the freaking health freaking services, leaders. And I was like, that's super freaking cute. I'm glad that he gets to actually follow his dream and still freaking be a part of this freaking term, rather than having to wait and run again, because I was like, He seems like he has drive. When the initial announcement was made, he was like, "I don't want to like confirm or deny anything," and then it was like all controversial because they were like, "We just saw a freaking advertisement for you running for president," and it was like, that wasn't my advertisement though, like and then then it was like the kind of like denial of like him like actually running for president, and then it was like, well, I am running for president, but I didn't want it to be like a like thing now. I wanted to like literally talk about it later and have it be an announcement that like kind of kept everyone into the loop of it. And then it's like, instead you guys are like all aware now, and that wasn't even my freaking ad campaign. And I was like, okay. And then he popped up, and then I was like, oh gosh, this guy is like literally going for it, the freaking new young candidate. It was freaking super adorable. But anyways, yeah, so he's gotten his freaking role as being a part of he's gotten the freaking offer to be a part of the new presidential freaking team. And with any luck, they'll freaking kill it if he accepts the position, and they'll have a freaking dream team this time, as opposed to the freaking like team that they had last time. I just don't even know freaking what the hell happened. Like literally I feel like by the end of that term, I was just like, did everyone literally just freaking get arrested? Like, did every freaking body either get fired or get arrested last time? It was just, I was shocked. I was like, this has never happened before. There's never been a freaking, like, presidential freaking, like, raid where it's ever been that horrible, where it's, like, somebody new was getting arrested, like, every 5 minutes. I was like, that's your freaking attorney. That's his freaking, like, that's somebody that he's chosen to be a part of his freaking cabinet team. That's another one, okay? This is, like, that's somebody I think that worked at his actual company. And then it's, like, I think that one's, like, a close friend or so, and I was just like, they're taking everybody down. It was like everybody's getting arrested. He's firing people left and right, and then the freaking Twitter thing. I don't know if it was like X back then. I think like Elon bought freaking like X during the pandemic or so. So I think it was like still Twitter then. But anyways, he was just like all over social media just dragging people, and I was like, you are so freaking messy. It's like every time I would literally pop like up to like literally check a news update, watch the freaking news, or like freaking check on like what's going on the talk shows. It was like always about him like dragging people, and I was just like, you cannot freaking do that. You literally cannot like drag the freaking heck out of people. And then it got so messy. I was like, I feel like this is like the Rosie O'Donnell thing all over again, where it's like messy as heck, and they're waiting to have like a sit down between like you and the people that you're talking about. But I'm like, at this point, it's like freaking like it's like 100 people that you've been freaking just dragging on social media, just saying like they suck at their jobs and all this other stuff. And I'm like, if they put you in a room with everybody that you dragged on social media during the freaking like 2016 through 20 freaking like raid, it would literally just be like Donald Trump and like just sitting in a seat, and then a mob like just sitting on the other freaking side waiting to literally just like voice like I would say if everybody voiced like their opinion or at least stated one freaking word, it would probably take like 2 hours to get all the way through with how freaking many people were involved within the freaking like drag onslaught. But with any luck though, they're gonna bring their A game this time. Everybody seems very well rounded. He's like a lot more mild this time. His team that he has behind him, it's a lot less, like I don't know. I feel like it just wasn't the time for it last time, and then with all the scandals that took place beforehand, that hit with his freaking entire story, I just really did not even want to hear about it. It was just too much for me, and then I had my own freaking like after he got out of office, I had literally like by the end of like its like presidential term, I had literally nearly gotten raped like a few freaking times, and I had been like some really freaking like bad situations, and I was like really just like super I was like fearful overall of like picking like the wrong partner and being in uncomfortable situations where I could be freaking like raped. So I was like with all the freaking scandals that followed through during his like first term, I was just like, when they were like ready to impeach him, I was like, oh gosh, like I just don't even want to hear about it anymore. Like every time I hear about him, I feel like I'm like in a triggered situation again. So it's like it's a bit much. And then he like came back for the freaking like second term this year, and then he was like campaigning, and I was like really on like my freaking like Joe Biden's back kind of vibes for like 2020 to like 2024. So I was like feeling a lot safer. I feel like I could actually like breathe a tad easier. I was literally recovering from surgery. And I started working as an educator also, so I was like really just like trying to find my zen space without literally just like like I don't know, just feeling overwhelmed. And it was like every 5 freaking minutes they were still talking about him, like all throughout the freaking media, and like all I don't. And then there was just like the talk of him running for president again. I just literally felt like so triggered again. I was like, oh my freaking gosh! Like I don't want it to. I don't want this country to become a place where it's like if it for all the aspects that like were not proven. If it's like I don't know, cause like when I was like I was in high school when he was like running for president. I was like during it was like during my freaking junior and senior year where all of this was taking place, and I was just like, I don't know how comfortable I feel with this, but I was like, I also feel as though putting a freaking politician, and this was like referring to Hillary Clinton, would make more sense rather than putting a freaking like celebrity and a business owner into the presidential freaking like seat, because we've never done anything like that before. And then by the time we got to the end of it, I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be like a shit show. Like, I feel like everybody fought way too much during this freaking campaign season for it to not be a shit show when he finally gets in there. And then there were just a bunch of the freaking controversies. And then I was like, that's just, it's cray. And it's just, it set a standard for, being able to just kind of get away with whatever you freaking want because, you like got to the presidency. And then I was like watching the entire breakdown, and then it's like everybody within this team, like the law literally like I fought the law and the law won kind of flow. Like it got like a lot of people that were in its presidential team, and then I was like, but what about that guy? And then like during the recent few months, he freaking has like been brought forth on its trial. I believe it's been freaking delayed. The sentencing has been like delayed until like after its presidency concludes again. But at this rate, I was like, if you guys never freaking fight for getting justice for any of the aspects that he, like, literally, well, for any of the freaking charges that he literally has committed, he'll be, like, freaking, like, by the time he, like, gets out of office this time, he'll be old as heck. Like, he'll literally be probably, like, I don't even know. Like, the job as a president is super stressful in itself. Like, Barack Obama went in there looking like freaking like he was like still in his 20s, and then he walked out of office looking like he was like 40, but his hair went like fully freaking gray. And I was like, that's a freaking. I knew it was a stressful job before he went in there, but I was like, I know it's been 10 years too, but I still feel like it's like when you look at a picture of Barack Obama, like when he first went in the office and then when he freaking like concluded like being in the office, it's kind of like it's looking at him like like he just walked in there and then he walked out looking like that, instead of he went in there, worked, and then did a lot for 10 years, and then he freaking like walked out like this is me now. When I look at him, I'm like, okay, when you walked in there though, you looked super young, and when you walked out of there, you look like these freaking people are insane. My hair is gray and I want to go sit down and retire with my wife and my kids. But overall, I don't know. I was really for like Kamala, like during this freaking run, because again, I was still like, I don't know, like the entire freaking campaign breakdown was really like triggering for me, and I was like super freaking worried again and again. I don't want somebody that like has a history of sexual allegations to be the freaking leader that sets a standard for the nation, where people feel as though it's okay to be like freaking just like overly handsy. And then for a lot of the situations that I had gone through, I had never gone through anything like that prior to him being in office, and I feel like it really like kind of set a standard for a lot of people to feel so they can kind of like just do whatever and kind of really do like the freaking like I'm a guy flow. And he really like he set a tone while doing so that was kind of like a lot very different. It's like we're an entire nation and we're all listening to you, and in doing so you kind of have to set a standard. You can't literally like just walk in there and be like grab them by the freaking cunt. Like that's like it's a bit much. And then it's like you set the standard for like everybody that's listening, and they're like, yeah, he's right, F everybody, I can do whatever I want. And then it's like for those that are more reserved, they're like in their head about it, and then that sets a standard for how they conduct themselves. And I was like, I really just don't want to be like in danger all the freaking time. And then when he started running again, I was like, oh my freaking gosh, I'm gonna have to be worried again. I might literally just have to go back home. And then I'm like back home currently, and I feel a lot like safer being in my home freaking area, Riverside, California, as opposed to being in Chicago, because I was like, there is already enough going on in this freaking city that I would rather not have to deal with like everybody like having like this horrible freaking like turn again. Because it was like during the pandemic, it was a bit much. Like I would say the first 2 years of it, everybody like kind of like calmed down and started to be like a tad more mellowed because there were a lot more people home. It was a lot more time to be like mindful of what you were actually doing. The children were home also, so it kind of like set a standard for put your freaking guns down and stop shooting each other. The kids are here. Instead of you being like the kids got caught in the middle of this, it's like literally the kids were right there. The kids have been with us the entire freaking time. They are literally on their freaking tablets and computers, like doing courses that way. Like, let's have like a ceasefire moment. So they did for like a decent bit, but then after the freaking announcement in 2023 was freaking sad, all hell broke loose all over again. It was like shooting all throughout this freaking city. And then during the beginning of the pandemic, there was a George Floyd freaking riots. As I told you guys, they literally like freaking destroyed like most of my freaking neighborhood and all of the freaking major stores and shops. And the only ones that were able to rebuild were the branches that were owned by corporations that had the funds to do so. So all of the mom and pops just literally like got out of there after and were like, we're done. And it was horrible. And then there was a lot of freaking like child neglect going on, and then abuse of resources, like such as like abuse of like public resources and freaking like access to like housing programs where it's like people are freaking using them, like no one's working, and then for those that are working, it's like off the books kind of work. Like I met a lot of drug dealers while freaking living in that city. Like literally every other person that I met like was like a drug dealer, and I was like, that's freaking weird that it's like it's not even like a joke. Like I was like, that's horrible. And then it's like, the freaking standard for their freaking children. And then there were a lot of people that kind of took on the demeanor of being like more intimidating than being welcoming based off of their upbringing in the area. And it was just freaking horrible. Like, I don't know. There's enough going on to freaking like make me like worried and to like stress me the heck out. And I was like adding like all freaking 5 million of you in this freaking city to that, it's like just a bit too much. Like I was like, there's always drama, there are like there's shootings, they're like always freaking taking place. The drug problems are freaking horrible. Like it's like you can like walk to the freaking store, and in the midst of you walk into the store, there's like somebody who's like strung out on freaking drugs with like a freaking like a bottle of booze in their freaking hand. And then it's like, aside from that, it's like there are drug dealers in every store. You walk into a place, and it's like, say you want to go check out like one of the like ideal freaking like the spots. So with the having great cuisine, it's like you go check out a freaking like, they're like, go check out the chicken spots, and they're like renowned for having like some of the best freaking chicken. And it's like you go in there, and it's like if you go in there, there are like guys like selling drugs all throughout the freaking restaurant. If you go to like any freaking casual store, they're like during like the summer season, there are guys like inside and outside of the store selling drugs. During like the freaking fall and winter season, when you would think that it would be like the most dead and it'll be safe, it's like no, they're selling drugs inside the store also. They're like best friends with the business owners and stuff, and it's like they're like enabling them to freaking sell drugs within their store. And it's just like, what the freaking heck? And then it's like during the freaking warm seasons, they're freaking sitting outside of the store with like a freaking like gang of other people, and they're all like trying to sell freaking drugs to everybody. And then it's like, you never know like who may have a gun, who may freaking like put you in a dangerous situation where you can be like made to feel uncomfortable. And I was just like, it's a bit cray. Like luckily for me, I literally was like, I don't know, I had like a bunch of like friendly moments with a lot of the people that were there, and I didn't really like have like any like, I didn't have that many bad moments that I could truly look back on and say, I was truly mortified. But I was like, for the sake of others, like, my gosh, you never freaking know. Somebody could freaking get shot one day, or it can turn into like just a horrible moment where it's like somebody freaking gets like, their drugs stolen, and then, other people get involved. And I was like, always like, this could possibly take place. And then during like my final few months in Chicago, there was a situation where I was taking a freaking train back from the freaking downtown area to my home on the east side, and this child, well, I'd say child because he was like probably like, I don't know, he looked like he was like, probably like 4 to like 5 years younger than, maybe like 6 years younger than me or so. Like maybe he was like, either he was in the ballpark area between like, I would say 17 to like 20 or so. So I was just like, this freaking guy, he gives me that energy where he's just overly cocky, but he's kind of showing way too much in the city for it to be like safe. I'm like, when I freaking walk around, I have like my freaking like necklace on, and my necklace is like literal freaking, it's like a copper freaking necklace, but it has my zodiac sign on it. And I'm like, at least it's something that I don't have to worry about anybody wanting to steal, and it's something that's like close to my heart. I literally love it, and I wear it like all the time. My freaking earrings, I don't like literally just go out and like wear my freaking diamond earrings, especially since I lost my freaking pair when I like dropped one of my freaking earrings that my mom got me for my birthday a few years ago in the freaking air conditioner when I first moved back to Chicago during the beginning of the pandemic. So I was like, I'm gonna like try to work on being a little less careless and not wear my earrings all the time and freaking like take them off like all the time. And I think it like got caught in my hair, and then I like went to pull it, and then it like kind of fell into the AC, and I was just super sad. But yeah, I wear these. Oh, and then I follow like of course like people like Kim Kardashian's freaking story. When I heard about her getting robbed, and then her inspo for like wearing fake jewelry after, as opposed to walking around in like a whole bunch of expensive stuff, I was like, oh hell yeah, I freaking love that. And then I was like in that freaking city too, and I was like, well, the only thing that's like, I don't know, of value would be like my freaking ring. Like it's like a diamond ring, but I was like, aside from that, it's like these are like freaking cubic zirconium and freaking like copper. My freaking necklace is like copper, so I'm like, there's nothing freaking like of value unless you like want my phone, and I'm like, like it's gonna have no value to you unless you freaking want to like literally have me like unlock it before you run off and literally take the freaking like passcode off of it. And then aside from that, it's like, I have a Samsung too, so I feel like, Samsung users are less likely to literally be robbed, luckily. Which is freaking great in itself, because I feel like, yeah, I'm not even gonna like really touch base on that. I'm gonna get back to the story point though, so I can tell you guys what the hell happened. So he freaking like was like walking through, and he had that energy where it's like, he's overly cocky, and then he had this big freaking like necklace on, and then he had like freaking like I believe he had like diamond earrings, and also he had like this freaking he had like the brand new freaking Apple Watch. He had a brand new freaking like iPhone. What the heck else did he have? He had like a bunch of no-nos for this city because there are so many like vagrants, so it's just horrible. And then he had like this freaking like super freaking, he had like a cute freaking adorable outfit that you can like wear anywhere else and it would be like super adorable. But being on that freaking train ride with the people that are literally constantly selling drugs and freaking like people that you don't know that are on this freaking system was like a definite no-go. And he met up with some people that I guess he knew from his hometown, his neighborhood, and from his other family members. And he was unaware that they had beef with his family members, so he was like talking to them the entire time, and he was by himself, and they were like already in like a gang unit moving through the train attempting to sell drugs. And I was just kind of like chilling in the freaking like train car area, me, like I'm literally just like just like vibing. I'm like, I literally am just like waiting to get home. I'm literally like ready to take a nap. It was like a busy freaking day. And it's like me and a bunch of freaking girls like sitting in the freaking center area of the freaking train car. Then we have like the guys on the freaking left, and then we have the guys on the freaking right. And then I was like, this was just super freaking fine. And then this freaking like one girl freaking gets off, and like me and her were like, I don't know, she's like a vibe. I was like chilling with her, like she was like, I don't know, I liked her. She had like great vibes. And then once she left, it was like, okay, so great vibes left. Let's see what's going on now. And then it was like me and the other girls. So then we were just like kind of chilling. And then the freaking guy walks through like for the second time with like to go to the other train car where the freaking people that were attempting to sell drugs like the entire time we were like chilling and everything. They walk through and they're like trying to sell drugs, and then their next wave walks through, they're trying to sell drugs. Their next wave walks through again after that, and they're trying to sell drugs. And I was like, how are any of you going to make a profit if you're all selling the exact same thing to the exact same freaking customer freaking like clientele basis? It was freaking great. But anyways, so they go through to that train car, and then there was like, I think a few more like followed after, and then they met up with that freaking first guy, the freaking one who was like literally overly freaking dressed for the day. And they ended up talking to that guy. They like walk back as like a mega freaking squadron, and they're talking about him, and they're talking about how he gave him like the wrong freaking vibe. They don't like his energy. There's already beef going on with his like freaking cousin, and if he freaking pops up, it's about to freaking go down. And then he walks up like after their entire squadron enters into my train car. He walks up with like after the last guy walked into the train car, like I would say like 10 seconds after or so, after they finished like concluding, like each of them has met up and started talking about him at this point. And then he walks up and he's like talking to them like, you know, like macho, like, hey guys, you know what's up. And then he starts feeling like the vibe is off, so then his face and demeanor starts to change. And then they look over at him and then they're like, so like what's going on, like what's good. And then he ends up standing by the freaking door to the train car. And so he was like planning to exit, but he wasn't really planning to exit. He was just planning to like find a spot that he can like stand in, that he would be in the area with the group without sitting and separating himself, because they were like blocking off the other portion of it by like sitting like they had like some of them like sitting on their seats, and then some were like sitting on top of the freaking seats like with their back leaning towards the window and stuff. They went full on like freaking like gang mode on that. It was like freaking watching. It was like literally being in the freaking Warriors for a brief moment. And then one of them just like literally was just like, I'm tired of this freaking crap. And then he just freaking popped off on him. So then he starts swinging. And then everybody else in their freaking group starts like freaking stalking the freaking guy. And then it's like freaking just the entire freaking group of them literally just like wailed on the freaking guy. Like they literally got to the point where they freaking beat him up and started punching him. And then they got him over to our area in the center area. So then each of us had to like go our separate ways. So then me and like half of the group went over to like the freaking like right side of the train car near the door to get to the other train car. And then I was just like literally all the way in the back. Like if I have to like go to the other train car, I will. Sadly for me, I don't know how to open the door though, so I might have to literally like tap on somebody who's in the middle of watching the fight and literally have you open the door for me, because I don't want to be in an uncomfortable situation, and I also don't want to get shot in case somebody has like a gun, because number one, as cute and adorable as it is to be extremely oblivious, you have to be mindful that you never know how these situations can play out, and also that there was the major freaking facet of gun violence taking place in the area, and with a lot of people having unregistered firearms, especially in connection to gang activities. So it would kind of be like a tad smarter to literally, instead of like staying in the area and attempting to watch the fight, to kind of like relocate to a safer area. And but that was just my mindset. They ended up like wailing on the freaking guy. They freaking broke his necklace. They took his phone. I think they took one of his shoes. Took his, I believe like maybe one of his earrings or so got knocked out, and I think they freaking ended up just leaving that on the floor as well. It's a freaking necklace, but they kept his like phone and stuff. And I think they like took his hat. His like freaking outfit was like all freaking thrown out of whack. His hair looked freaking horrible after. His face was like freaking just like full on had just survived a freaking attack. And then they just kind of like waited for him to freaking leave the train, and then they exited the train with him after. And then I was just telling my grandma when I got home, I was like, well, now that we can be realistic and talk about how we know how these things go, between you being from Chicago and me being well versed in these type of things, what do you think is going to take place? Because when I saw the situation, I was thinking, now that he freaking just went through that situation where he just got jumped by those people and they're like, you know, we're all okay, and then, you know, they already had beef with Man and Man's freaking cousin. Now that Man just got beat up and Man's gonna go tell Man's cousin, are you thinking what I'm thinking by it's about to freaking escalate now? So now it's gonna go from a freaking like brawl on the freaking train to being a full on freaking like gang activity, freaking like shootout kind of like flow. And she was like, actually, I was thinking the exact same thing. That's typically how it freaking goes. It escalates from a fight where it's like, instead of being one-on-one, it's like a group fight. And then there are also fights where it's like a one-on-one fight, and then instead of, you know, saying, you know, don't bring a freaking gun to a knife fight, it's like, you know, don't bring a gang to a freaking one-on-one fight because you are like afraid that you'll lose the fight, or because you're talking way too much freaking crap and not able to back it up. So then a lot of people get involved, and then I was like, that's how this situation is probably gonna go. There, he's literally gonna get back home. He's gonna freaking tell. Okay, so that one's Man. We'll call the other one Braun. Okay, so Man just went to go freaking tell Braun what happened. Now Braun's gonna go talk to the people in his gang, and now they're gonna all work together because they know the people who actually just did this. As I said, he like knew all the people that were like in that freaking group, or should I say most of them at least, on a personal freaking level. So then it's like that freaking basis of, you know, that standard where it's about to freaking go down. People are literally about to get involved. There's gonna be a brawl going on over a decent period of time. This is also one of those communities where a lot of people don't speak up. So it's like, you know, hear no evil, see no evil, but it's like, you know, they hear a bunch of evil freaking crap taking place and going on. They see a bunch of evil crap like taking place and going on. and they kind of just choose to like not speak out about it, to like not call the cops. And I was like very freaking like proud in my home area. There was like a bunch of freaking shooting going on like a few freaking blocks away after we like moved into the new freaking house, and I was just like, people better start freaking calling the cops at some point, because I'm getting worried. I'm like, I've been in the city for like 5 freaking years now as a freaking adult, and the fact that people like literally don't call the freaking cops here after people have been like shot, there are like people like pulling out freaking like semi-automatics like every freaking other day around there. And I'm just like, it's a bit much. Like, this city needs like some heavy freaking like police freaking like surveillance activity, and the freaking crime rate has to be controlled, because it's like ridiculous. There are people shooting each other with semi-automatics like every freaking other day, perched outside of stores are freaking drug dealers, and then it's like cops are like driving right past them, like nobody freaking knows that that freaking random guy who's been standing outside of a freaking store for freaking hours, he's probably definitely a freaking narcotics distributor. Like, why the what, like, and it's just like, these are no brainers. And then it's like at night, it's like, if I can hear the freaking semi-automatic freaking shots from my freaking home, like, why the hell are you like literally surveillancing and freaking like patrolling the area, and then not noting that you can literally hear semi-automatic shots being fired? And then it's just like, it's cray. And then it's like, it's not even like it's a series of like, you know, semi-automatic shots being fired. It's like the follow-ups with freaking, then you hear handguns being fired, then you hear more semi-automatic shots being fired. Give it like freaking 30 minutes to an hour, and then it's like starting up all over again. And then it's like, with any luck, hopefully somebody will call a freaking ambulance, because you know somebody's gotten freaking shot, and it's like probably freaking dying at this point. And then it's just like, when do the cops get involved? When does somebody actually go, let's be freaking realistic and call the freaking cops? Like, I don't know, they were weird. But overall, yeah, that city was, the cuisine is freaking amazing. The downtown atmosphere is super freaking cool, but the people have really bad demeanors and ways of carrying themselves, as well as the freaking story of behind the scenes within Chicago. It's like, it's extremely horrible, it's extremely sad, and it's just it's not something that I would literally like encourage anybody to like go for, because it was like really just that horrible. And then I had a lot of bad experiences with freaking companies, their hiring practices, as well as just these standards of how they conduct themselves. So I just wouldn't recommend it. But if you want to pop up in that area to like go freaking shop, it's like, check out the downtown area. Don't go shopping throughout the freaking city. I know if you check anything out, it's going to tell you that Chicago, it's a mega big area. Stick to the downtown region. Outside of that area, it's like kind of like, it's like literally seeing one of those freaking movies where it's like, this is Shady Acres, the freaking beautiful metropolis, the beautiful metropolis society. And then you freaking go outside of the gates, and they're like, but we never leave the gates, because the gates are, no, wait, hold on. Okay. But we never go outside of the gates, because what's outside of the gates is something that we can never, like, I don't even know. I would just say that we can never possibly freaking even fathom, because we've never gone outside of the gates. And then in going outside of the gates, you're like, why the hell are there freaking, like, why are there buildings boarded up everywhere? Why are there people, like, selling drugs everywhere? And, like, why are there just, like, homeless people every freaking where? It's just, like, it's horrible. It's, like, poverty outside of the freaking downtown area. And it's so freaking sad. And it's, like, you have to freaking be, like, literally being a tourist there, you have to literally just freaking go to the downtown area, because in leaving the downtown area to actually see what's going on outside of the freaking, like, downtown area within the freaking city, and it's a big freaking city, there's a lot of poverty. There are freaking kids that are, like, freaking selling drugs, that are freaking, like, homeless all over the freaking place. Families. There was a freaking the big freaking Mexican migrant Mexican migrant freaking situation where there were just hundreds of them throughout the freaking city, just like, in tents and freaking camped everywhere. Got to the point where the entire city had to get involved and start working towards, establishing literal freaking campsites for them, and freaking renting out freaking vacant freaking lots to literally house these people while they freaking work towards getting back on their feet. And I was like, this freaking city is like getting to be like a bit too much for me. It's like every freaking 5 seconds there's never like a zen moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I love Chicago, I'm having fun. It's like, no, there's always something going on. It's like somebody's getting freaking shot 1 second. There's something freaking just, let's see, there's somebody trying to freaking sell drugs right outside. There's somebody trying to steal a car. And then like I bought my freaking first car and I was so freaking happy about it. And they stole my car within like less than a month of me freaking having it. And I was like, oh gosh, like, is this for, like, are you guys for real? Is this really like one of these things to be mindful of? Like, do I have to really go like, you know, these people are like, they are like stealing, and it was like really bad, and I was just so shocked. Ugh, that was freaking horrible, like overall. And there was a lot of like segregation. It was like really like weird. I don't know, cause like I'm from California, and I'm like I also live in Riverside, so it's like there's a lot of diversity. Like within even just like within my local neighborhood, there's like people of like every race. They've got freaking Spanish Americans, Middle Eastern Americans, African Americans, Caucasian Americans, and then I've also lived within like the freaking college area also. So it's like it makes sense to have everybody that's included with that breakdown, but it's like all throughout our freaking city. And then I was like, in that freaking city, there was a lot of segregation. There were a lot of neighborhoods where it was like just African American people, and then there was like this, it was like a mega quadrant for just like African American people with like a tad bit of like mixes in throughout, but it's like, you know, one person who's a different freaking nationality per freaking like 5 block radius or so, like, and it was like weird. And then it's like, aside from that, if you want to go find like the Spanish Americans, they're like in their own freaking like set neighborhoods and areas and districts and stuff, and I was like, what the freaking heck? And then the Caucasian Americans are like all like downtown, and I was like, what the heck type of weird stuff is going on here? And why is this not talked about? Like, why does nobody draw attention to the fact that like all of the freaking Caucasians are like downtown in the super expensive freaking area? The freaking Spanish Americans are like in that area between like the freaking downtown area and the freaking like, let's see, south side, east side, and the west side areas. And then the African Americans are like all within that freaking given freaking region. And I was like, no one talks about this? Like, this is, I don't know, it was just freaking extremely weird. But you guys, we are on 3 of 5, so let's see. Oh. And I've gotten to the hour point. That freaking story literally took me like 30 minutes to get through. Okay. So, JFK. Okay, so to file an EPA claim, you can go directly to the court and file a charge with a EEOC. The time limit for filing an EPA charge is 2 years from the alleged unlawful compensation practice, 3 years for a willful violation. And I was like, let's see if I can like find the basis for explaining a willful violation without trying to literally explain it off of, you know, my knowledge basis. Let's freaking add in some freaking like verified freaking info. A willful violation is when someone intentionally or knowingly breaks a law or safety requirement, or when they are aware of a dangerous situation but don't take reasonable steps to fix it. For example, an employer can be charged with a willful violation if they deliberately ignore safety protocols, refuse to address known hazards, give misleading information about safety measures, knowingly expose workers to serious hazards without taking necessary precautions, fail to take action to address reported safety concerns, so much more. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, classifies violations as willful, serious, repeated, or other than serious. OSHA uses an employer's knowledge and state of mind to determine if a violation is willful. In copyright infringement cases, a copyright owner can seek up to $150,000 in statutory damages per willful violation per work. They can also seek attorney fees as the reimbursement for the amount spent on defending their case. Oh, okay, so that's like the end of like page 4. So that was a lot less than I expected. I forgot it ended with that. You can visit the EEOC's website for full instructions on filing a charge pertaining towards willful violations. Violations of the Equal Employment Opportunities Act. Oh, wait, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. Um, Also for violations against your Seventh Amendment right? No, against your civil rights, Title VII rights. Um, let's see. Yeah. All right. So that's the standard for that, and you always can find which division, what branch you can actually report any situation that you go through towards by just doing a tap bit of research. There is always a team that you can literally like submit any information and freaking drop any freaking tips to. Like I was a lot of people always wanted. I didn't know that the Ponzi scheme thing was becoming such a freaking big deal until recently when I freaking like I would say throughout the pandemic and up until now, so over the past 5 years, I have had a lot of freaking cases take place where I was like offered a job position or freaking offered a freaking loan, and then in doing so they were like, okay, so here's a check for you to cash, and then all right, everything's great, and then they were like asking for like portions back and everything like that, and I was like, okay, this seems a little sketchy and weird, but okay. And then I did it for, I would say, like two. I did one was with somebody offering to be a new employer, and then one was with another company offering to provide me with a loan. And in both cases, the freaking checks bounced like shortly after, but my freaking bank my bank literally added the funds to my account. So I was like, okay, so I guess it's like legit. I guess I was just like worried for no reason. And then after freaking dispersing the funds, they were like, yeah, no, those were freaking fraudulent checks. So then my Wells Fargo account was freaking killed by that freaking taking place. Um, I had a freaking another account and I forgot what the heck it was, but they killed like two of my freaking major bank accounts and I was so freaking annoyed by it. And now I'm like, I have a freaking new account and luckily it's freaking fine, but I'm like, that was horrible and I hate that like the crime freaking aspects are getting that bad. But I ended up reporting it to I believe it was the FCC, and I reported the freaking scammer for the fake job employment freaking position, and I had to literally provide all the evidence. So the evidence of our conversations, our communications between text, emails, the application website, um, let's see, the freaking bank statements to show the information, the responses from my bank pertaining towards pictures of the fake checks and everything else. And it's like you kind of literally have to be mindful. I ended up having to like do some research as to who I could report this situation to, and then I was giving the insight towards reporting it on the FCC's website to have them kind of like track this and literally ensure that it's kind of a Ponzi scheme that's set to freaking be halted. And you have to literally just follow through. And when it's a case that pertains towards your work life and your standard of life, you have to literally set a basis for dotting your I's and crossing your T's, guys. So do your research, figure out what branch you can reach out to, and be mindful that you won't always have to literally like go through the freaking talking spiel of freaking stressing yourself out. You can literally type out a bunch of this freaking stuff, provide the evidence, and forward it through freaking emails. It's like that simple to literally drop a tip about something, to file a claim to protect yourself before your freaking life, your job, your freaking family's lives, and your careers are freaking put in jeopardy. Just be mindful that there are a lot of options. You can bring if you want to call in, a lot of times you can call in and bring like give information and provide it. It's always easier to do like email communications, however, because you have it kept on file. It's not just you making a statement, and then you also have the information provided that will provide the basis for evidence towards the case to back what you were stating. And in doing so, everything is kept on file. Your case is noted as something that is valid, and you're heard throughout the process. So always check your resources and find out if you have anything going on in your life, who are the applicable sources and teams that you need to reach out to get assistance and remedying your case. Okay, so for the final portion, guys, we're going to go through my presentation, and we're gonna go through some of the final slides. So we're gonna go through the protectorate laws, the affirmative action laws, and the state and federal action laws. And then for the state and federal action laws, I'll kind of breeze through all the laws we just read through, or I might just literally just read through my presentation. Okay, so for protectorate laws, and this one, let's see, okay, this is a quote from myself from one of my discussion posts. The act has been, and I word these so freaking well that I literally just have to quote myself sometimes. That way it saves me from having to go find a quote from somebody who also wrote something that's super wordy and to the T for what I need. So occasionally when I can quote myself, I literally love these moments. So I was able to quote myself for this one and literally cover the basis for what I needed to for this presentation. And then sometimes I have to literally go through other courses and other assignments that I've done for other courses, then quote myself and then set my freaking citation up to literally cover the old freaking assignment that I did for another freaking course or so that covered the exact same topic. And I was just I don't know, I literally love reading through them and then remembering that I quoted myself for one. The act has been adapted through the years to cover the protections of other protected class members, such as those with disabilities, via the Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 ADEA. All adaptations have helped to reinforce the ideals of a civil and just workplace in which all are welcome to join the workforce. The EPA of 1963 prohibits discrimination based on sex in the workplace in regard to the standards of pay and the adherence required by all to maintain the equal standards of pay required for all citizens. The ADEA of 1967 protects citizens at least age 40 years of age or older from discrimination in the workplace by the standards of hiring practices and the protections of rights ensured while within the workplace. Affirmative action laws. Affirmative action laws help to ensure that all employees within the federal hiring process are offered equal opportunities for recruitment, advancement, and all major rights ensured to employees within a given federal branch. Affirmative action laws protect individuals within all disparate populations from discriminatory hiring practices and work to preserve their rights to ensure that all employees are offered an equal amount of opportunities for advancement within their career fields. State and federal action laws. For federal contractors and subcontractors, affirmative action must be taken by covered employers to recruit and advance qualified minorities, women, persons with disabilities, and covered veterans. Affirmative actions include training programs, outreach efforts, and other positive steps. This is from the U.S. Department of Labor, the Affirmative Action section. States must adhere to the guidelines of, and this one is going to reference back to that point where I was I'm going to fill you guys in on what I'll be reading through this time. So the Immigration Reform and Control Act, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, and the Equal Pay Act. As all laws must be enacted and voted upon for approval within each state throughout the country, the guidelines for the adherence to acts mentioned in the above section are set by state guidelines. The protections ensured by each set group of acts or laws are to be upheld as to ensure that the rights of all citizens are preserved and enforced during all hiring practices throughout the country. Alright, you guys, so I'm going to conclude it there. That is the breakdown covering the standards of discrimination within the workplace and setting the standards for how you are to work towards bettering these overall acceptance of others and the adherence to the laws and the rules, guys. I love you guys so much. I will talk to you guys a tad later-ish. Don't forget to go check out our social media. So go find us on Instagram, DKHLegalAid. Go find us on X, DKHLegalAid, and go find us on TikTok, DKH.LegalAid. And also go check out our website and go book a story consultation today pertaining towards legal insight, educational insights, and the breakdown for my non-native English language learners, those looking to improve their proficiency, literacy skills, or who need assistance with any type of freaking coursework or anything like that. You can always book me and I'll literally try to assist in any way that I can. And have an awesome day. I love you guys.